like to call reconvene the regular Board of Education meeting. We had a work session earlier today at 4 o'clock. I got a roll call.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Here.
Mr. Fruman.
Here.
Mrs. Hubner.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Dr. Heiss.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For our safety briefing, we do have 4 exits. We have 1 up front here and 3 to your right. I get a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. Next up, our minutes. Approval for minutes of our previous budget organizational meeting from January 4th.
Move to approve the minutes from the January 4th organizational meeting.
Second.
Any changes? Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. Approval of minutes from our previous regular meeting on January 28th.
Move to approve the January 28th regular board minutes.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. Next up, correspondence.
Yes, Dr. Heiss. Dr. Heiss and the Board of Education. I do have 3 pieces of correspondence. I'd like to begin with received 2 pieces of information from the Ohio School Board Association regarding Randy Smith. Randy is going to be honored at an upcoming Southwest Regional meeting for 2 things. Number 1 is he's going to get his 10-year award for being an active board member for 10 years. But the one on top of that, I think, is he's being honored for an award of achievement. This is the 9th time that Randy has actually received that award of achievement. It's because of what he does for the association and for the board across the state. So congratulations to Randy.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
The next piece of correspondence that I received is that we were just notified that we had received, along with a consortium of the school districts, a $10,000 planning grant from the Ohio Department of Education in the state of Ohio for new administrators that are new to the position. That $10,000 is for planning in regards to getting that off the ground. The entities involved with that, it's just not us, but it's the Educational Service Center from Hamilton County, as well as the University of Cincinnati, Lakota, Southwest Schools, Princeton, Finneytown, Claremont, and ourselves in that regard. After that, we are eligible to apply for up to $100,000 of additional grants for the program once we send in a plan to them for that. So that was kind of exciting that we were able to achieve that. And then finally, although this person will probably most likely be honored next board meeting, but I kind of wanted to share with everyone that we were notified wasn't too long ago that one of our middle school teachers, who is Pat Grove, 8th grade middle school social studies teacher, was recently honored, which was last week, by the Ohio Middle Level Association as their Ohio Middle Level Educator of the Year. And I thought that would be great, and so we'll invite Pat to come for more of a formal presentation at our next board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer, any correspondence? Okay. Next up is the procedures for public commentary. Regular meetings of the Board of Education are not public meetings, but meetings held in public. We, of course, welcome your comments. If you would like to address the board, we have green cards up front, and we will go over them at that time in our agenda. Now to what is always the high point of these meetings. We have a candidate for graduation. Mr. Broadwater.
Good evening. The following student has completed all requirements for a diploma from Anderson High School, and that individual's name is Ryan Michael Beavis. Is Ryan here this evening? Ryan is not. It is recommended the board approve the granting of a high school diploma to Ryan Beavis.
I move that we grant a high school diploma to Ryan Michael Beavis.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Another highlight, of course, the commendations and recognitions. We have our National Merit Scholarship finalists. So we have one from Anderson and one from Turpin, so. Mr. Broadwater, you're up there. We'll go first and then.
We're negotiating.
Yeah, is that what-
I'm not sure I won or lost, but it is recommended the board commend the following students who have been named finalists in the 2013 National Merit Scholarship Program for their achievement and distinction, and a certificate of commendation be presented to them. And those individuals' names are Emily Clausen from Anderson High School,
and Allie Grudone from Turpin. And I don't believe either one of them are here tonight, but they have been here in the past, you've met us throughout the process. And again, they ended up being one of 16,000 students who were recently notified that they made finalist status out of the 1.5 million that began the process, obviously, well over a year ago. And about 8,300 of those will actually receive monetary scholarships for their achievements, and they'll be notified in mid-June. They start from about $2,500 to anywhere above that, from 440 different corporations. Obviously, their achievement will get them quite a bit of money from the college they choose, as well as local, county, and state scholarships. So it is quite an honor for us to have both of them.
I move that we commend Emily Clausen and Allison Grudone as finalists in the 2013 National Merit Scholarship Program.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Next up, thank you, Dr. Jackson, for the Master Teacher Recognition.
Absolutely. This is what a highlight this evening to honor two people, Rose Arnell and Karen Cochin, for achieving the Master's Teacher designation. Master Teacher demonstrates excellent inside and outside of the classroom through consistent leadership and focused collaboration to maximize student learning. A Master Teacher strives for distinguished teaching and continued professional growth as specified by the Ohio standards for the teaching profession. To be designated as a Master Teacher in Ohio, eligible educators must clearly demonstrate each of the following criteria and have exemplary scores in at least 4 out of the 5, and I believe all 5 in this case. Consistent leadership, focused collaboration, distinguished teaching in regards to students and their environment, distinguished teaching is in regards to the content and their instruction and assessments, as well as just continued professional growth. I believe that Rose and Karen, I think, are here. Are they not? Come on up.
I move that we,
Yeah, move
commend
to
Rose Arnell and Karen is it, I'm sorry, Cochin? Cochin, thank you, for achieving Master Teacher designation. Second.
Ms. Teffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Come on down. We gotta run the gauntlet. Congratulations, and thank you for what you do. Congratulations, and thank you for what you do.
Thanks, Karen. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Oh, and then the- All right, it's time for, I got it, public commentary. I think we have Garth Peterson. You're up. You can finish writing it down and just come on up.
My name is Garth Peterson. I'm a substitute. I'm also a volunteer engineer on the Cincinnati Zoo Green Team. And I was sort of curious about the current thought process with respect to if there are indeed new buildings built and so forth, what the LEED designation for certifications would be, like gold or platinum, to achieve some kind of hierarchy there to achieve similar status to some of the other schools or even our zoo efforts that I volunteer with to try to bring national recognition to the organization in that particular respect.
Thank you, Greg. Would you like to address that, Ray, maybe just a little bit in that regard? Where we are already
Right.
with the other buildings, though.
Yeah, I mean, we've achieved Energy Star ratings in 8 of our 9 buildings, and certainly look at a variety of ways to achieve, more energy efficiency at any new building, as well as, I think, 7 of the 8 other buildings all have issues going on with them if the bond passes that would increase our energy efficiency at all of them.
The other observation I had was with respect to, I've been a long-time Anderson resident. I know a number of neighbors that had been sort of upset that there were additional fees in the district for like art and stuff like that. And I personally understand it, but I know families have actually voted against the last levy because of that perception. So just to put that, I could have asked to grind either way, but perception with some people is reality, and that's something that I had with a couple of neighbors. So.
Thank you.
I'm sure that's what it was.
All right, thank you. District updates from the superintendent?
Yes. Let me kind of get my act together here for a moment. First of all, I guess I would like to start with most recently our governor's biennial budget proposal to the state legislators. Now, again, it's just his proposal, and so that it will have to go through the legislative process and be voted upon into law. But with that said, in regards to us as Forest Hills and the preliminary data, it shows that we will be receiving no additional resources from the state of Ohio over the next 2 years. We're not in that boat alone, although this particular budget is supposed to be putting some additional revenue for many of our schools across the state. I happen to look at, in the 4-county area, in regards as to where does the school districts, where do they kind of match up. Of the 49 school districts in the 4 counties area, including Hamilton County, 22 of those school districts will receive an increase of from a degree of amounts of money, but 27 will be held flat. And as we talked about a little earlier in our work session, that so many of the charges and requirements that are placed upon us as a school district over the last year, and especially the next couple that are coming, is going to involve a lot of additional resources. And just so that the board will know, and we talked a lot about that earlier in regards to that the funding from our state will be flat for the next couple of years, at least as proposed in the budget. Again, it's not legislative law yet. Okay. I also wanted to take a moment and report, and I think Julie will be doing a little bit more of this later on when we talk about our safety committee safety meeting. But I wanted to share at our last board meeting, we did have a resident who did speak about safety and what we had been doing. And so just wanted to provide the board and to our audience in regards to what have we been doing in regards to safety. Now, we all know that what happened on December the 14th in Connecticut was such a tragedy. But it is also a wake-up call for us to, again, to examine what we do across our district. And since that time, in the past 6 weeks, Ray Johnson, myself, Phil Sinkovich, who is our coordinator of our safety programming, as well as different safety officials from Anderson Township, have toured our buildings, and we have made some tweaks and changes in how we do things. We have ask each building to conduct additional lockdown and procedures, especially with professionals being there in attendance, safety and/or police and fire officials there as well, so that they can, again, see these drills in progress. With that, and then have a debriefing with our administrators afterwards so that we can talk about what we observed. And I actually attended several of those myself. Since that time, we have increased some of our security measures by adding a few additional keypads and even some swipe cards and panic buttons to our buildings and some of our doors. We've added electronic buzz-in systems as well in a couple of our buildings. We've clarified and standardized our visitor buzz-in so that we can make sure that at least when the visitor does buzz into our district, that our staff, our secretaries in particular, are asking the right questions and before permitted to visit our facilities. We have a reviewed and renewed interest in making sure that we wear our own identification badges when we are in the buildings, as well as all of our staff, and making sure that they have them on as well, so that visitors can recognize us as well as being staff members, that we might be able to help them and answer questions for them. We've had meetings with Anderson Township Fire as well as the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, and have asked them to assist us in a more thorough, a thorough safety security assessments of all of our schools. To not just come in and look at those drills, but actually look at all of our schools and what we're doing all the way around. Our high school athletic directors and administrators attended a new training on sports and special events incident management in regards to some of our larger venues that occur, whether it be a basketball game, a football game, or whatever, baseball, softball, whatever that might be, to address incidents that could conceivably may occur at those areas. How would we address those situations? We've reviewed our after-school activities in regards to, it's one thing to think about during the school day, how we react to any particular incident, but what about after school, our latchkey programs and our after-school activities? How can we address those a little better? We've checked and rechecked to make sure that our safety plans are updated, and we've also provided even newer updated ones from the beginning of the year to our safety and fire officials, as well as updated maps to our buildings. And finally, a facilities plan was presented to the Board of Education that does include safety and security upgrades throughout our district, which was put into place and talked about long before the Sandy Hook, but just again, that's involved there. And then, as I said, just recently, last Wednesday, we met as an entire group in our safety committee meeting, where we addressed a number of concerns and also looked at a new program that probably Tracy will share, or Julie will share a little bit as we move on. So I just wanted to share that as well, as an update, as a report. And then just kind of just as an announcement, I'd take a minute and maybe put an announcement in here that on Saturday, March 2nd, from 10 to 12, we're going to have all of our buildings are going to be open, so that any of our community who would like to come and visit and tour our buildings, to take a look at those facilities and maybe ask questions about safety and security and those types of things, that we'll be there as well to answer those. So that's March the 2nd on Saturday from 10 to 12. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
If I could comment here about security real quick.
Garth.
I'm a member of the FBI Citizens Academy group here locally, and we did not have a lessons learned from Sandy Hook yet. We're hoping to have that within several weeks, and when that's available, I'll make it available to you guys.
All right.
The other observation is training with
Garth,
respect to students.
There's another time for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, though.
But thank you.
Yeah. Next up, board discussion.
Just summarize what we talked about in our work session, that's all.
Okay, yeah, we did have a work session earlier today going over our board priorities for 2012 and 2013. We have put a number of things down that we'll be reviewing and then bringing back next meeting for finalizing. Anything? Okay. We're going to have the next two items on the agenda, that being 11 and 12, as being a consent agenda. So first up, Betsy, Student Services.
Item 11 includes, for 11.1, our agreement with Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services noted in the contract that's attached. There's also included an attachment for the guidelines for district hired aides. And again, this is the contract for 2013-14 for our students who attend Bobby B. Fairfax School. There's no change in cost and for the next school year, and we currently have no students attending, so that's something I wanted to point out. The next items, 11.2 through 11.8, are 7 trips. 3 of these trips are after-the-fact trips due to their qualifying status since the previous board meeting. We have all from Anderson and Turpin, first being the Pride World Drug Prevention Conference over spring break, Turpin High School Academic Quiz Team that just occurred in Medina, Ohio, the Anderson Dance Team in Columbus, Ohio for the dance competition coming up this weekend. Anderson and Turpin, their varsity swim teams, attended this last weekend for the state championship meet. And Anderson's drama for the state thespian conference this coming weekend. Anderson High School and Turpin High School Latin clubs for the Ohio Junior Classical League convention. All the costs, again, the locations and information is listed in those agenda items.
I move that we approve 11.1 through 11.8.
All right. Yeah.
Are we doing them all together? Sorry, we're 12.
That's okay. We're
Just
going to
kidding.
12.
Hold that thought.
Just kidding.
Yes.
Just want to make sure everyone's paying
That's,
attention.
we are. Next up for item 12, curriculum.
We have a number of policy items that have been reviewed last month, and we're asking for approval this month. The other item that we're asking for approval on this month is the summer school dates and fees, which the fees remain the same. There's a little reconfiguration of the elementary program as far as being more focused on academics, whether it be in intervention or enrichment. And then we have a number of course of study, textbooks, and curriculum changes that we're just presenting for the first time this evening, so we won't be asking for any action on those. Any questions?
Just one. Would Tracy, would you
I'd
like to make a motion?
motion for items 11 and 12 in the agenda.
Second?
I'd like to just point out under policy, it says it is recommended the board approve the policies as listed. Actually, I think the policy committee is recommending these changes. The policy committee did meet and go over every one of these in detail. And I just want to share that with the rest of the board that the policy committee did review these, and these are our recommendations.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes, sorry. I was
Fruman?
thinking.
Thinking about policy, thinking about being an it.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. All right, next up, HR report. Tammy?
Good evening. In your HR report today, item A, retirement. We would like to extend with regret the retirement of Wendy Chalk, fifth grade teacher at Wilson, 35 years in Forest Hills School District, and Rebecca Holthouse, 18 years in Forest Hills, and our teacher at Nagel. Both of those will certainly be missed. Resignations, we have Rebecca Apfel, Justin Flannery, and Carla Brubaker. Moving on to item C, resignations. Item D is a change of assignment from 6 to 7 hours per day as a paraprofessional. Item E, F, G, H, and I are all appointments. We have Sarah Hildebrand, who has joined us at Sherwood Elementary School as an intervention specialist, and Suzanne Ackle, school nurse at Anderson. Non-teaching staff, I'll let you take a look at that. Item G, special services appointments on pages 2, 3, and the top of 4. Item H, these are appointments of coaches or advisors. And again, I'll let you just take a moment to look at those. And item I, substitute personnel for the 2012-13 school year, and we have a number of individuals. Since the last board meeting, the staffing level in the district decreased by 0.12 FTE and now stands at 769.17 FTE. And I will note that the 0.12 FTE change is due to adjustments in bus routes, and that happens fairly often. We have just a little more or a little less with the bus route. The superintendent does recommend that the board approve the human resources report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Abstain.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Next up, thank you. Business to operations. Ray?
Well, I appreciate our speaker talking about energy efficiency, because that's a nice segue into something I was going to go off schedule for just a second. As I was walking into our 4 o'clock meeting, Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance dropped off a check for $19,658.25, which was part of the incentive I spoke about to the board last year when we were getting ready to do some of our summer projects. So between the money from the Energy Alliance and the Duke incentive money for the project we did over at Turpin to modify the HVAC system, as well as the lighting in the science classrooms and some similar work over at Nagel, the two of them paid for about 35% of the project. So just got the check today and just thought I'd let you know. The first item is a motion to authorize myself to take all necessary steps for the issuance of a request for proposal for professional design services for the construction of a new Wilson and building renovations related to the passage of the May 7th, 2013 bond issue. It's recommended the board approve the issuance of the request for proposal.
We'll need to do each of these individually?
Yes.
So, yes.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
The next one is bids were opened and read on Friday, February 15th, 2013 for the renovations in the kitchen area at Anderson High School. The complete bid tabulation recommendation are shown in the attachment. It's recommended the board award the contract to Kramer and Feldman Incorporated as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Again, bids were opened and read on Friday, February 15th for the partial pavement replacement at Mercer Elementary. The complete bid tabulation recommendation are shown in the attachment. It's recommended the board award the contract to Westside Paving and Excavating Incorporated as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
The next is for the bid opening for the partial roof replacement at Turpin High School. Again, bids were opened and read on February 15th for the partial roof replacement at Turpin High School. All the bids exceeded 110% of the budgeted amount. According to Ohio Revised Code, we are not allowed to accept the bids. Therefore, the attached resolution rejects the bids and allows the district to rebid the project. So moved.
Second.
What we're doing is authorizing.
A rejection of the bid.
Correct.
Rejecting.
Now, once we've opened the bids, we have to reject them in order to proceed, because we're not allowed to accept them as they were presented.
That's why this is a resolution, correct?
Correct.
That's what I was trying to
Resolution to
understand
reject.
is the procedure here.
Yeah.
Rick rejects them as the
Correct.
treasurer. Got it.
We're not allowed to accept them, but we have to reject them.
Well, that's what
We
I
have to
was
make-
troubled
right.
by. We can't accept them, but we actually have to have a resolution rejecting them.
And we will be sending a copy of the resolution to each of the entities that bid on the project.
I second.
Okay. Mr. Teffer?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Don't they know, though, that the revised code, that we can't accept their bid? I mean, I guess I don't understand, why would they even go through the process of putting it together if they know we are not going
No,
to?
there were 6 or 7 of them that all
Right,
did the
they all
same
did,
thing,
right.
so, yeah.
Did they know our budget?
Yes, it's a part of the bid specs.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I don't, I waste your time.
It was very, very clearly a part of that.
Yes, okay.
The problem is that with fuel prices going up as much as they did just before the bid opening, it drove a lot of that pricing high. The next one is the bid opening for the partial carpet replacement at Air Elementary. Once again, bids were opened and read on Friday, February 15th. For the partial carpet replacement at Air Elementary, the complete bid tabulation recommendation are shown in the attachment. It's recommended the board award the contract to RCF Group as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
The last one is the bid opening for replacement air handling units at Anderson High School. This is in the pool area. Bids are opened and read on Friday, February 15th for replacement air handling units at Anderson High School.
The complete bid tabulation and recommendation are shown in the attachment. I might add that one of the alternates that we're taking is also doing similar work at Mercer Elementary this summer because the pricing came in so favorable. And it's anticipated that we probably, between that and the lighting that we're purchasing through this for the Anderson High School kitchen, probably going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of about $20,000 back in incentives from Duke Energy as well. To recommend the board award the contract to Blau Mechanical as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Dever?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Next up, we have the treasurer.
15.1 and 2. On 15.1, we request a renewal of the annual membership 2013 for the Ohio School Boards Association. It is recommended the board approve the renewal of the district's annual membership January through December 2013 in the Ohio School Boards Association, and the membership fees an amount of $7,296.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd like to just point out the amount of money that the district has saved over just the last 10 years is tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars as a result of the programs that OSBA offers. But I do have to say that because I am a trustee for that organization, I'm not permitted by law to vote for this, so I'll be abstaining.
Right. Mr. Dever?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Abstain.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
And Treasury Report 15.2, we have items A through J. A is our donations, and this time of year we have significant after-prom donations and some significant Turpin PTA donations, total just shy of $13,000. And item B, we have a statement of board accounts. All those accounts are in good conditions. In C, D, and E, we have our receipts and expenditure report. And C, 68.35% of our projected revenue has been received. That is in line with where we've projected our forecast. And I said D and E show the expenses. In E, you can see the 54.53% of our annual appropriation has been spent at month end, just a little bit higher than the 3-year average at this time. Nothing of concern there. In item H, we have the monthly bank item F, we have the monthly bank reconciliation at January 31. Item G, we have a list of investments. In item H, our amendments to the appropriations. No change to our general fund, but we do have some other amendments there listed. In item I, we're requesting the approval of the board service fund meeting expenses. In item J, and this kind of ties back to Ray's item, we're asking the board to approve the transfer from the general fund to the permanent improvement fund to cover the planned capital projects for this summer. The transfer is for the, there's one project that's a food service item that doesn't include that. These are the other 3 projects that were approved earlier in item 14 for the project costs as well as the design costs. That's what that transfer amount is.
And the food service isn't included because that's paid out of the
It's funded by the food service fund, correct. It's recommended the board approve the treasurer's report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Teffer?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, are reports to the Board of Education. We'll start with the Forest Hills Foundation report.
Well, I wasn't at the last meeting because I was at the Turpin community meeting. But I did get an update, and they had a wonderful event. A Day for Today's Woman was just this last Saturday. It was very well attended. I understand it went particularly well. This Saturday is the Turpin Anderson alumni basketball game. It's at Turpin, and halftime entertainment will include the Naval cheerleaders and a youth basketball game. There is a number of programs coming up as well. There's For the Love of Learning is going well. They've raised over $3,500. And with that extra money, the foundation has decided to fund the Power Equity program. That's the power of equity program to help you with that.
That's so everyone
Is
has
that what computers?
access
Computers?
to
Yeah.
computers that might not otherwise have access.
So that's another $3,500 that they're funding, and actually, that's all coming from our faculty, so thank you very much. And that's the update.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Safety Committee report. Julie?
Excuse me, Safety Committee, as Dallas said, met last week, February 20th, and the committee, just so you all recall, meets 3 times a year. And we started out by talking about a little bit about the tragedy at Sandy Hook and what our district has done as sort of a follow-up, as all districts are refocusing their efforts on safety. Dallas started out with basically the report that he gave tonight, and I think that he started his report by saying that we look at our safety plans several times a year, and this was just another reminder of the importance of safety in our buildings, and we have again looked at our safety plans, and all of the areas that he talked about have been focused on, and additionally part of the bond issue for May is a safety component, which we had planned to do prior to Sandy Hook. We're very diligent about safety in our buildings. I think what was really kind of cool about this last meeting was that there were a number of new people and a number of visitors from other areas. I know Brown County was there, and I think some other areas, just to see what we're doing. We had a special guest, and his name, so I have it right, is, he's from the Montgomery Police Department. His name is Paul Payne, and he made a presentation on a program that is used in the Sycamore schools called ALICE, and that's an acronym for Alert, Lockdown, Information, Counter, and Evacuation. This is a program, pardon me, that was developed by San Diego State University Police Department as an active shooter response program. There were elements, there was discussion after Officer Payne's presentation about maybe some of the things that we might want to do in our district, and I am fairly certain that we will have small group discussions in the future about what, if anything, we can take from that, and maybe new ways of looking at these issues. So, as always, I'm so privileged and proud to be on the Safety Committee. It's so well attended, hardly anyone ever misses, and people take it very seriously. So, thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, the Legislative Liaison Report.
2 items. One, this might be of interest to education junkies who've been around for a while. Former State Superintendent returns to ODE as Executive Director. Former Ohio Superintendent of Public Instruction, Dr. Susan Zellman, returned to the Ohio Department of Education to take the newly created position of Executive Director. She'll focus on school funding issues as the state develops a new funding model. I thought that was somewhat interesting for those of you who might know Susan. The second thing is House Bill 59. Dr. Jackson mentioned some of that. I've got a couple-page summary that I was going to pass out to the board. It's for something that is extremely complex. This is one of the better summaries that I've seen so far. That it doesn't give you the whole formula, but it does give you highlights of a few of the key issues. I'm not going to go through this. The other thing I wanted to point out, and actually Dr. Jackson mentioned that we will be flat funded to last year, but the other thing that has been made clear is we're on a guarantee, which means we're getting funding above what the current formula or model would give Forest Hills if there weren't a guarantee or a hold harmless clause. Rick, I can't remember how much over the guarantee is from what we would be having, but it's
$1.5 million this year and about $700,000 next year. So I mean, we're not close to being off the onto the formula over these 2 years.
But the key message that the governor's office is giving is that the hold harmless or guarantee or whatever you want to call it is going to go away. So if they had not held us harmless, I kind of hate that term, but we would have lost that money. You know, we took a cut 3 years ago and 2 years ago, and we would be taking a cut this year significant and next year significant. The message that they were giving us, though, is that eventually they will taper off the guarantee money, and we will be left to just what the formula would leave us. So that is not good news for Forest Hills, and Dallas, you went to a wider area than I did, but if you just look in Hamilton County, the vast majority of school districts, at least in Hamilton County, were flat funded. Those that weren't, it was just a slight difference. But anyway, some actually did get more money.
Randy, let me, just to reiterate that, I mean, it's that whole harmless, and just to make sure everybody's clear, that means no new money in a situation where, you know, expectations and costs are going up. You know, we had huge decreases, 30% last year. 6 years past that were flat. So we really are 10 years ago revenue numbers from the state. By law, the local property taxes are flat by law, regardless of what property values do. So those are the only two sources to operate the district, and they're continue to be flat. So it's good news that we weren't on the formula in this case, because we got what we got last year, but it's not good news when it comes to paying bills.
And just to be clear, even though we've got it flat funded in our 5-year forecast, if they were to implement the tapering off of the guarantee, we would be down in funding.
$2.5 million if we go on the formula.
Is there any indication of when the tapering off might occur?
I haven't heard yet. Has anybody?
I had heard it could be as early as the next biennial budget. Not this one, but 2 years from now.
2 years.
That they would begin tapering that off a little bit.
Unknown. And it's really early because
Sure.
this bill is just in the House. It's got to go through the Senate, and then they've got to confer, and then the governor can always line item veto something. So anyway. But anyway, just wanted to share that with you. But like I said, I think this summary, for something that's a very complex topic, gives you a little bit of background, even though it is 3 pages. That's all I have. Thank you.
I thought it was interesting that the Franklin superintendent and his issues that bemoan the fact that the low value districts were not, like his, our high poverty districts were not getting money, and he was bemoaning the fact that that what he considered high value were getting money, like Springboro and Kings. Whereas we often see that, I think it's 21 cents on our dollar actually comes back to the district, is what I've heard. So it's, I guess we get it from both sides. But we didn't do any letters on school stationery, so.
No, we did not.
Yes. Okay. I think that about wraps it up. We did have executive session already earlier today. So the next regular meeting of the Board of Education is March 18th, 2013. I appreciate everybody for coming. And I'm going to motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs.
Mr.
Bissinger?
Duffer?
Yes?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Height?
Yes, thank you.